Welcome to the new series of the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive. I'm Eggs Benedict.
And I'm Alice. I interrupted you already. That was a bad start.
Well, it was an afterthought.
I'm Alison Barton Simmons.
Yeah, we've fucked it up already. Never mind. So, as you will have heard on listening to the new theme tune, we are doing something that's not The Good Life this series. We kicked the arse out of it last series and we enjoyed it very much, but we're going to do something fresh. We're doing Fawlty Towers.
Amazing.
Looking forward to it. What do you think of when you think of Fawlty Towers? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The board outside the hotel that the kid changes the letters on.
Yeah. And what's your favourite? Everyone's favourite's Flowery Twats, isn't
Flowery
it?
Twats. Yeah, I think it is. I think because I think it mystified a massive percentage of the country at the time, because twat isn't or it wasn't at the time. I don't think it wasn't really a national swear word. I think it's more of a northern thing, a twat.
I think also, well, they say twat in America and in New Zealand. They say twat here, although it's not very common. But I think there is an older meaning of the word twat, which isn't dirty.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is possibly how they got away with it in the 70s.
It seems, when you think about it, it's quite, thinking about it now, I don't think you would see that. You're not like on a primetime sitcom.
No,
It's not something you would see. But yeah, Flowery Twats is my favourite, yeah.
We are setting the tone for how we're going to deep dive Fawlty Towers by getting stuck straight into Flowery Twats.
What's your favourite?
Well, it's not my favourite, but I always think about like the major classic scenes that everyone loves, like him bashing the car with the branch.
Yep.
And when he reveals the rat at the end of the very last one.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be a cheese board, and he goes to them, "Can I interest you in a rat?" Trying to like pass it off. So it's all those classic things, and of late it also makes me think of the Major. We'll talk about that in a bit, I think. With the Major managed to get Fawlty Towers taken off streaming services a couple of years ago due to the racist language, because he was a racist character, not because the show was racist.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
But no, it's a good one, I think, to get stuck into. And let's be brutally honest, we've also chosen it because everyone loves it. It was voted the Britain's most favourite sitcom about 8 or 9 years ago. Americans, they don't love it as much as Monty Python, but they're aware of it. And it's certainly had a few stabs at remaking it, as we'll discuss.
Yeah.
And people in Australia and New Zealand love it. So we're sort of going, like, trying to build the audience a bit, really, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's international, isn't it? It's got international love, I think, has Fawlty Towers. And it's one that's always been on my radar in terms of sitcoms from the past few decades. And like many things in the 70s, I always thought that it was like a long-running, successful sitcom. And it's only in recent years that I've realised that there was a really limited amount of actual episodes that were made and showed on TV. Was it
Very
12
so.
altogether? So 2 very, very short series for something that was so successful. But there's loads of things in the 70s where I think it was like for example, the TV show for kids Bagpuss in the 70s. I thought it was like forever on TV, but I think there was only like 13 episodes of that made. So it's in good company with Bagpuss. Wow. It's just one of them that you just don't, you think has been around forever because of its longevity, but it's actually it's just very, very short, punchy, successful series.
I remember watching Bagpuss as a kid, like almost every day. How did I not twig that it was like the same episode every 2 weeks on a loop?
On a loop. It was just on a loop. So every fortnight, it was just repeated.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Bagpuss. I liked Emily and Professor Yaffle as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't...
Fix it, we shall make it.
Fucking hell. Anyway, this isn't the Bagpuss Deep Dive Overdrive. No, let's stick to sitcoms. Oh, maybe that's a spin-off, Al. Kids TV from the 70s and 80s. That'd be good fun. So obviously, we hope that you're sticking with us if you enjoyed The Good Life, and now that we're doing Fawlty Towers, maybe it's not up everyone's street, but hopefully you'll just watch along with us and enjoy it with us, because it's only 12 episodes, as we say. We think it's a great show, although we don't have the same sort of connection to it that we a personal connection to it. I think it's fair to say, isn't it? As The Good Life, we're not as fond of the actors as we were Richard Briers. There's a real sort of emotional connection to those actors, whereas these guys, they're just I don't have any antipathy towards them, but they are, they're just actors in a sitcom to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. I think it's a series, like I said, it's a series that I've always been aware of, and I think when I was younger, it was like the slapstick, chaotic element that I enjoyed. But I think rewatching it now as an adult, I don't think I've rewatched it in recent years, to be honest. This is the first time that I'm looking back at it while doing a deep dive, which at first I thought, oh God, is that a bad thing? Is that something that I'm going to regret sort of like not putting in the time prior to this to watching it and deep diving it previous to this? But I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing it through different eyes and truly deep diving it as if I'm watching it afresh, I suppose.
Yeah, and we've discussed as well in future series, we might do ones that we've never seen, like The Lightly Lads, or you've never seen Rising Damp, have you?
Only one or two of those. It's not one that I sort of
might be
from
fun
start to end. Yeah, I think so. So I am. At first, I felt like I was not doing the pod job properly. However, I now feel like I've got that excitement. I've got the excitement of doing it, and it's like, with like sort of fresh wonder. I'm looking forward to seeing it all from start to finish.
So, as with last season, this first episode is just going to be a general discussion about Fawlty Towers. And then, starting from next week, we'll start from episode 1 and do the following 12 sequentially. But just before we have a general chat about Fawlty Towers, some roundup things from series 1, because we've been a bit bowled over, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I have been. Very much
bowled
is, yeah.
over by the support we've had, and there's people who still, even though we haven't released a new episode in months, send us tidbits from tidbits, not titbits. What is it? Tidbits.
I would say titbits, but I feel like it is tidbits.
Is it? Am I thinking of Barbara's pokies again?
I think you are.
I need to get off that subject.
There's one for the tab.
Yeah, no, there are some tits in Fawlty Towers as well, so we'll come to that. But no, we've been sent lots of lovely things. We're sent from the very sweet and lovely feedback we've had to the bizarre, like a audio clip of Penelope Keith saying, "Fuck off!"
Stunned.
And also a guy who wrote a song inspired by the podcast about The Good Life, which was amazing. I mean,
isn't that wonderful?
We just, fancy that. I didn't know what to say, but we really appreciated it.
Yeah, we did.
And we also managed to unearth, subsequent to the end of that of series 1, we unearthed the 2003 episode of Beyond the Box, Margot Ledbetter, which talked about what Margot's character did after the end of The Good Life. Didn't feature Penelope Keith or any of the original cast. Paul Eddington was actually dead by then, I suppose. And it's absolute aberration. But if you wish to watch it, join our Facebook group where we shared it in its entirety, and you can see just how bad it is.
Just be prepared.
Yeah. Margot goes lesbian in it, doesn't she? For a while.
It's that fan fiction all over again.
I know. She gets her les trousers on, like you. So join the Facebook group, sign up to the newsletter, and we'll also maybe, after the Fawlty Towers run, we'll let our Facebook group members and newsletter subscribers help us pick the third series from a shortlist. So there's your incentive if you want to sort of sway the way we go with the third series. Yeah. So, Fawlty Towers, Al.
Fawlty Towers.
Hello, Fawlty Towers.
Just a bit of an overview then. So there was two series, 1975 and 1979. Quite a big gap between the two series then, wasn't there? Which is unusual. You think they'd be sort of throwing them out. But the more sort of reading I've done around Fawlty Towers and about the writers John Cleese and Connie Booth, they were proper perfectionists, weren't they? When it came to writing, they spent so much time and effort on one episode as most writers would spend on like a full series. So they were proper into it, and I think they really enjoyed what they did.
I think it was like a month for every episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that's quite a big deal, isn't it? That's quite a lot of effort.
But also, I mean, in 75, the first series was out. It was a slow burner, like a lot of these things are. As we discussed, The Good Life didn't. I'm gonna have to stop going on about The Good Life, but it didn't take off, did it? Until
no.
A strike happened and ITV was off air.
Yeah.
And I think Fawlty Towers was a little bit of a slow burner because at the end of the first series they were getting about 3 million views, but the first episode of the second series 4 years later had 13 million views. So all the repeats in the interim period had cemented its status, as a classic.
And I think even after the pilot episode, those in charge at the BBC weren't really enamoured, were they? They were sort of like, oh, it's a bit sort of slapsticky, it's a bit daft. Are we that bothered?
Yeah, I think John Cleese, in a clip I saw, read out a letter from the BBC from somebody there describing it as dire as its title, and it's not going to be anything but a disaster.
So he kicked himself afterwards, didn't he?
Well, John Cleese seemed to enjoy rubbing his nose in it. In the clip I saw.
Yeah.
He didn't name check him, but I think he was tempted. Of course, we should probably also mention that in between 75 and 79, John Cleese and Connie Booth, who were married, they were a husband and wife team, divorced in between the first and the second series.
I find this
carried on working together.
Absolutely. This is one of the things that I'm looking forward to sort of, whilst we're deep diving, just having an awareness of as a team. Most teams, despite, even if they weren't married, teams of people that sort of fall apart, you'd just give up on the project, wouldn't you? And you think, I just don't want to see that person's face. I don't want to be involved. Let's just forget it. And they carried on. They were able to carry on and produce something that's with such the longevity of a top sitcom that has to be funny. And you know yourself that if you're sort of not happy, it's quite hard to be funny, isn't it? It's quite hard to sort of stay up and productive. But they managed it.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe the fact that there was so much conflict and anarchy in the show helped them, because if they had to write like a lovely feel-good, gentle Esmond and Larby type show, they might have struggled a bit more. But I know that they did describe, Connie Booth did say that working as a husband and wife team helped them as nothing was off limits.
Okay. Yeah.
That everything was available to them. I mean, it's quite nice, isn't it? I think more people should strive to have great relationships with their exes, particularly over here in New Zealand. It just doesn't seem to be the done thing.
No.
So it was incredible that they were able to carry on.
It feels like the Fleetwood Mac of sitcoms, because you just think, oh my God, how they've obviously channeled all that feeling and all that emotion. And I am, especially with the second series, that's one thing I am looking forward to sort of analysing and looking at.
Yeah, see if there's any little tells that sort of give something away. Yeah. So famously, the concept of Fawlty Towers was inspired by a visit that the Monty Python crew had to a Torquay hotel. Not the one that was used in filming. That one was actually in Buckinghamshire, not in Torquay.
Yes.
But the hotel was called the Glen Eagles Hotel, and the owner was a chap called Donald Sinclair, who walked around being obnoxious to everyone, and John Cleese found this fascinating. And most of the Python crew were just like, this is a bit off, but Cleese was like busy storing it all away for a future project.
Yeah, he sort of put that away, didn't he, for a couple of years. And when it came to sitting down and sort of brainstorming an idea with Connie Booth, it was like the first thing that came to his mind, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think they actually did. I don't know if it was the two of them wrote it, but he definitely wrote a scene for a show called Doctor at Large, or a sketch on ITV, in which was based on this Donald Sinclair character, this rude hotelier, and it's sort of like the blueprint for what Fawlty Towers would become. And you can watch that clip online, so I'll tweet it out at some point. It's not Basil Fawlty, but you can see elements of what would later become Basil Fawlty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as you say, it didn't really get going, did it? Until like the Python crew fell apart. It was a few years, really.
Yeah. It must have always been on his mind though to do something with that character. It obviously made such an impression on John Cleese that he built a whole 2-series sitcom around this obnoxious, rude man that he'd come across briefly. What an impression that he must have made.
Well, I mean, the whole thing really does hinge on Basil, doesn't it? And it is the Basil show, really. I mean, as good as the supporting cast are, and they certainly do add things, the show is it hinges on this maniacal, kind of eccentric bully of a man who's quite an obnoxious emotional cripple, really. But
do you know what? From the brief sort of like rewatching that I've done so far, I do feel a bit sorry for him on occasion. I think he's a monster. He is a maniacal monster, isn't he? And often he's the reason for his own downfall and the problematic things that go on around him. He's obviously sometimes the instigator in that, but sometimes I think, oh my god, like I've got a feeling that on rewatching, I'm not gonna warm to Sybil at all, which as a woman I feel like, oh, I'm doing her a disservice, but I find her fucking annoying.
Yeah, I think she was written apparently to be quite different than she turned out to be.
Okay.
From what I understand, Prunella Scales, who obviously plays Sybil Fawlty, and she was starred with Richard Briers in The Marriage Lines, which is what she was mainly known for at this point. She, at the table read, just sort of brought a different energy to the character. Okay. I think she was supposed to be a little bit more sympathetic and not quite as
abrasive,
strident. Yeah, exactly. She brought her own thing to it, and initially, Cleese and Booth were like, "I'm not sure about this," but then they realised it was actually helping the overall, not the plot, but the setup, of how
like the character development. Yeah, you can sort of see
you
can see Fawlty. Often his behaviour is a reaction to her, and it was.
Well, his primary driver is just basically to stay out of trouble with her. That's all he really wants. The thing he's scared most of is like getting it from Sybil, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So the fact that she was so abrasive made that driver in Basil Fawlty's character more apparent. And it served it well, it served his panic and showed why he was quite so maniacal. At the thought of her coming home and finding O'Reilly doing the building instead of the other guy or whatever,
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I think she's brilliant. I actually the way obviously you would think people would fancy Polly.
Yeah. Did you fancy Sybil?
I liked Sybil a bit. Yeah.
Did
I have to say I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. Must have been the beehive.
Yeah, the crazy golfing outfits.
She was only like early 40s, wasn't she?
Oh shit! See, she always seems so much older. The character of Sybil.
Yeah.
I always think the likelihood is that they're sort of supposed to be like our age now, and it just feels like they were so much older.
Yeah, I get that with a load of these old shows, and it's not just the fashion. It's their demeanour.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So obviously you've got Basil, and he's played by John Cleese expertly, who always was a master of physical comedy, which is what Basil does a lot of.
Yeah. And
then we've got Sybil as his battle axe wife. The most memorable trait of Sybil's was probably her laugh, wasn't it?
Oh, the laugh.
Yeah.
The laugh.
We did the poll last year to see what the most iconic sitcom laugh was, and I was expecting Jerry to get it from The Good Life.
Yeah.
Because of our listeners being, most of the people following us. But Sybil won it.
Oh.
Not for you.
No, I think it's like a knife on a plate. I feel like I'm going to feel the same way about Sybil as you felt about Tom Good.
That'll be an interesting switcheroo then, won't it?
Yeah, it will. It will.
It's probably a good point to mention that we're not planning on doing MVP this series, are we?
No, because I think it would just end up going to
Polly.
I was trying to say Connie Booth, but yeah, to Polly every week, because she just gets them out of the shit.
Well, she's the normal one.
Yeah.
In a lot of these sitcoms, a lot of classic sitcoms, and even modern sitcoms, where you've got such surreal behaviour out there, outlandish behaviour, they often insert the one who is the normal one, but
yes.
only relatively speaking. Like, Father Ted is the normal one in Father Ted, but he's still off his fucking cake, isn't he?
He is. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it'd be like Polly or Manuel for the sympathy vote of like, oh, poor Manuel, he's got it in the neck again.
Yeah, maybe, but Polly would just get it because she bails him out the shit every episode.
Yes, every time.
So there's no point having an MVP, is there? No. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Not this time.
I can't see the Major winning any. I really like the way the Major asked for the papers, so I'm going to give him my MVP.
I'm just going to give it to that kid every week for changing the letters round on the board.
Yeah. You're just hoping for a cameo from Mr. Coles.
I hope he comes back, yeah. I hope he does.
I'm trying to think who else is a classic normal one in sitcoms. Edmund Blackadder, I suppose. In Blackadder Goes to Fort. Well, in fact, most of the Blackadders, apart from the first one, he is the normal one.
Yes.
Surrounded by incompetent buffoons, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, he is.
I mean, he's a bastard, but he's relatively sane compared to the rest of them. But that's what Polly is. She's the person who is the anchor in the show to give us a sense of this could actually be real. This could be a normality.
Yeah.
And she given that she wasn't an experienced actor, I think she does it really well.
Absolutely, she does. Yeah, I think as a writer, she's already sort of up there in my esteem. Is that what I mean? She's I think she's massively talented, but to see her act as well, I think it's brilliant.
And because she actually left the business, didn't she? She did Pamela Stevenson and just became a psychotherapist or psychologist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think that's really impressive. At that time of life. I'm sure she was fairly well off from making such a hit show.
Yeah.
But just to say, I'm going to do something different now.
Such a radical change.
She did 5 years studying in London and then she was a psychotherapist up till her retirement.
Wow.
Amazing.
Every credit.
Manuel Towers, how are you?
And of course, the final main character who rounds off the quartet is probably the most lovable, do you think, Manuel?
I think he is, yeah. I think he's a fab character.
I love the way in that one scene that the Major leads him out of the hotel when he's banged his head and he's like he's walking a monkey.
Yes!
I love that scene.
There's so much to that part as well. There's like the comedy element, there's the slapstick element, the physical sort of side of it as well. The fact that the majority of his lines are in Spanish or some kind of like cod Spanish.
I am from Barcelona.
It is a multitasking at its finest, I think, and very funny.
Yeah, he's very, very good in it, and I think he's sort of like he plays it with real flamboyance and hams it up, which is what's necessary for the part.
Yes, yeah. I don't think you could overplay it too much, could you? I think he when you sort of see Andrew Sachs being interviewed since, and he's quite an unassuming bloke, isn't he? He's quite a calm and a mellow guy. So I bet he wasn't when he picked up his voicemail in 2009. Oh God, no! I think about that a lot, and I feel really bad.
Well, allegedly, that was never really a voicemail. It was just a comedy radio stunt.
Is that right?
Well, depending on who you listen to, the producer says something different to what Russell Brand says, But I mean, he probably would never have been aware of it, but for the furore that surrounded it.
Is that right?
And then he's like, shit, my granddaughter gets about.
Yeah,
he probably would never have thought about that.
Yeah, oh dear. Right, okay.
Poor Andrew. He's dead now, of course, isn't he? He's the one who's, I say the one who's dead. Obviously, the Major's dead because he was about 200 in the show, wasn't he? But the Major, of course, played by Ballard Berkeley. Ballard Berkeley.
That's a stage name.
Yeah, Ballard. Would you ever consider calling your kids Ballard?
Never, because of the shortened nickname version of being called Ball, I suppose.
Yeah, or Ballard. No, probably Ballard. I think we should bring Ballard back. I think we get if we can get a listener who's so obsessive about Fawlty Towers that they've called their kids Ballard, then please get in touch. We want to hear from you.
I'd love to see a picture of baby Ballard.
It's just not a baby. You just imagine him in a baby grown that looks like the Major's jacket.
Yeah, it's like a suit, like a double-breasted suit with brass buttons.
Good morning, Major.
Very well, thank you.
The two other recurring characters, other than peripheral recurring characters, other than the major, are the little old ladies, aren't they?
The old ladies that live there. Do they live there? Do they actually sort of, is that their house, or do they just visit very often?
I think they're residents, like the major, they're residents. Miss Tibbs and Miss Gatsby.
Bless them.
Who they reprised their roles as Miss Tibbs and Miss Gatsby in an episode of Only Fools and Horses in 1983.
Is that right? That's so interesting.
Bit of trivia.
What? Did they live in Nelson Mandela House or something?
I think they might have done, because they were at a residents' association meeting, I think.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember the one where Rodney became head of the residents' association meeting.
Oh, I need to go and find this.
Yeah, and
that's so cute.
Their names aren't said, but they are done up exactly the same, and they're the same two actors. So they're credited as playing Miss Tibbs and Miss Gatsby.
That's ace.
And we did talk about sitcom crossovers that we wished had happened, didn't we?
That's one that I would never have imagined. Fawlty Towers and Only Fools and Horses.
We were talking about Alf Garnett and Desmond's, weren't we? Probably.
Yeah.
Even less likely. And then, of course, as well as the main cast peripheral characters, there's some pretty cool, well-known cameos, guest appearances, aren't there, from, well-known faces?
Yes.
Who's your favourite, do you think?
I tell you one that really wound me up already.
Let me guess. Is it Cribbins?
No, it wasn't Cribbins. No, I love to see Cribbins in whatever Cribbins is doing.
Yeah.
I love a bit of Cribbins. No, it was the deaf lady.
What?
Joan Sanderson plays a lady who has problems with her hearing, and there's the whole sort of like misunderstanding and lots of what, and she doesn't quite get what's going on, and yeah, there's all sorts of issues around this lady not knowing what's going on, and I found it just really irritating.
It's because it's that thing about, why can't you sort it out, isn't it? You're watching something infuriating.
Yeah.
Going, even though you know it's a sitcom and it needs to go wrong for there to be conflict, you're watching it going, God, this is just a clusterfuck. Someone needs to go in there and sort this shit out.
I struggle with that, though. I think I'm going to have problems with Fawlty Towers, because I do struggle with being able to, as an audience member, seeing the problem unfold and then watching the characters try and sort it out and knowing what the answer is at home. And like, there's certain episodes of TV shows that I can't watch. I just can't watch. There's an episode of Friends where Joey and Chandler lose baby Ben on the bus, and I can't watch it because it just gives me so much mild peril that I can't watch it unfold because it just bothers me so much.
Did they use a brass tone in Friends?
They should do as well. Yeah, that it deserves a brass tone.
What do you think the American audience would make of a brass tone in the middle of Friends?
Oh God, and a close up of Ben on the bus as he disappears around the corner. No, I do struggle with mild peril. So yeah, I think Fawlty Towers for me that's going to be an issue that I need to be aware of.
Well, a lot of the guests are problematic. A lot of them aren't problematic because Basil's just a grump and he's just impatient with them. But some of them really are. I'm not the most patient man in the world, but this is where you really get on Basil's side, because you go, oh, I don't know how anyone would put up with that.
Yes.
Bernard Cribbins is really annoying, his character, because he's so fastidious. I mean, he's brilliant in it, don't get me wrong. And there's the dinner party one where Polly gets dressed up as Sybil, who's left Basil, and gets into bed pretending to be Sybil. And some of Basil and Sybil's friends come round, and one of them's just an arsehole, and you think, oh, how's anyone putting up with this guy?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. So Bernard Cribbins, Jeffrey Palmer, Sanderson, whatever her name was, Mrs.
Joan Sanderson, yep.
Una Stubbs was in one. I think that one I just mentioned.
Yes.
And you just think of the Give Us a Clue thing every time Una Stubbs is mentioned.
Yeah, I think about Give Us a Clue, and I think about the young ones when they talk about Una Stubbs, because they love Una Stubbs.
And Felicity Kendall,
yes.
Of course.
Oh, there we go.
I always think about, because I was a big fan of Give Us a Clue as a kid. I know it's not a kid show, but I used to like it. Yeah, well, it's that theme tune, because they changed it. It was something quite... I think it was the theme tune to Grange Hill.
It was the theme tune to Grange Hill! Yes, that really threw me as a kid, because I thought, what the fuck's going on?
Someone's
Where's Zamo?
Someone's double dipped. Where's Zamo? Do you think it was going to be like Lionel Blair on drugs?
Shooting up. Yeah.
Yeah, in the corner. Mind you, sometimes he was acting like he was high as a kite, actually, Lionel Blair.
Yeah.
But then they changed it, so it was the Grange Hill music. So whoever wrote that double dipped and got a second payday.
Yes.
And then they changed it, and they wrote this really funky, upbeat one. I think it was around the time Aspel went and Parkinson came in.
With Michael Parkinson.
And Lionel Blair.
Yeah.
And Lisa Goddard.
Goddard. Yeah.
Give us a clue.
Give us a clue. No conversation, just demonstration is what you do. Give us a clue. Be acrobatic or just dramatic, whichever's you. Give us a clue. If you're specific, you'll be terrific. We're watching you. Give us a clue. Give us a clue. Give us a clue. With Michael Parkinson. He's the God. And Lionel Blair. Give us a clue.
With Tom Baker. And then they'd go through all the guests, wouldn't they?
It would, and they'd all be sort of like jiving along, doing dancing in the seat.
Yeah. We've got Tom Baker here, and DLT, the Harry Cornflake. Give us a clue.
It was exactly like that. I like that. Yeah, that's it's a bit of a screensaver earworm for me. That, you know, like every so often I'll be sat doing something like some like laborious, monotonous job, and I get like a screensaver earworm that just suddenly reappears from my childhood, and that is often one of them.
Too.
That theme tune. And I get them where I can't not think about them.
Anyway, Fawlty Towers.
Yeah, back to
how we ended up on Give Us a Clue. So, the first episode of the show cost £20,000 to make, which is piss all, is it?
Wow!
But you can see it's very cheap. I mean, the walls wobble all the way through the thing, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe one of the other most interesting things about it was that every episode overran. So, nominally they're supposed to be 30 minutes, these shows.
That's really
and
interesting.
They're usually really strict, but for some reason I don't really understand, Cleese got given a long leash, and he was just he'd already trimmed it down from like 50-minute episodes. Yeah. And he's like, well, 34 minutes we'll have to do.
Yeah.
And that's what they got away with doing most of the time.
And they just rejigged all the other sort of the TV shows that were sort of coming afterwards, and which was unheard of, weren't it? They just didn't do that.
So obviously we're still in the 70s with this one, aren't we? After having #different times in The Good Life. But The Good Life's fairly PC for the time.
Yeah, I think so. There was only the odd sort of bump, weren't there, really?
Yeah, nothing too out there. But of course, Fawlty Towers has been in the press even fairly recent years for some of the language that was used in these old episodes. And I think it was taken off the streaming services that were owned by the BBC. And then later reinstated with a warning.
Yeah, yes.
Like a trigger warning.
That there was going to be just outdated languages within the episode, and sort of themes within the episode as well, just to be aware of before you start watching.
Well, yeah, because Basil, the show isn't racist and the show isn't sexist, but Basil is both, and got very sort of outdated views even for the 70s. He's more... in line with like the Majors generation in the way he thinks about black people.
Yeah.
There's some homophobia, mild homophobic remarks in there. And then there's obviously the famous Gerbans episode, which was the one that was taken off the streaming service. But that was mainly because of comments that the Major made, wasn't it?
Yeah. But again, it is of a time, isn't it? Like we said, with the problematic issues within The Good Life, they are of a time, and they are of that character. It's not sort of a series. It's not a series that was promoted as right-wing propaganda that you'd watch and sort of get on board with and enjoy. It was to sort of point out that these characters exist. These are people that are based in reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately, one of the things that happens in this day and age is that people don't look at context. They just hear a word and panic.
Yeah.
And language is important, as you've said in a previous episode, but at the same time, we're not invited to laugh along with the Major. We're laughing at this outdated old fool.
Yeah.
And even Basil thinks it's a bit much, I think, in the scene in question. We'll deal with it in more detail when we get onto the Germans episode. But, I mean, aside from the comments he made, racial remarks that he made in that one, there was also this sort of worry about the appropriateness of making fun of the Germans. And the Germans love this episode.
Yeah.
The Germans. I'm talking about like they all share the same values, but by and large.
Yes, the whole collective. And I think in the 70s, I suppose, how many years sort of post-war was that then?
30?
Maybe 30. Yeah, and time has moved on since. And I think as we're taking it's like a retrospective look into it, and I think in the same manner as we looked at things like this within The Good Life, it's a case of looking at it from a distance, isn't it? We are looking at it sort of detached from those beliefs.
If anything, it's unkinder to the Irish with that stereotyping of O'Reilly than it is to the Germans.
Yeah, that made me feel uncomfortable, I suppose, because there was no reference to that. There was no one's ever sort of said, "Oh, we're not doing that anymore. We're not supposed to be doing that." That was left in, and it's almost like acceptable to do that. Whereas that made me feel like, oh,
yeah.
Don't like
but, I mean, as I said, the Germans generally really embraced the show, and they did a German version of this show called Hotel zum letzten Cliff.
And what does that mean?
Fuck knows. Don't know. No idea. Did you know, as another little trivia, that the voiceover, the dubbed voiceovers in the German version, they got Andrew Sachs to play Manuel again in German.
Yes, because he was from a German background, is that right? Until he was like in his sort of like late childhood. He lived in Germany?
Yeah, not late childhood, but I think he was maybe 5 or 6 when he came over to Britain. So his German was his first language. German was. So he just reprised the role, but in German, which is bizarre.
In his native tongue. I like that.
He did all right out of it, Andrew Sachs. He did all right out of Fawlty Towers. Although, I mean, he did get beaten up quite badly, you know. Some of those horror, you know, Basil's obviously horrible to him, but the time when he clocks him overhead with a saucepan, he nearly bloody brained him. Yeah. It wasn't
Did he get set on fire as well at one point?
Yeah, and he had burns on his arm and everything.
That's suffering for your art, isn't it, really?
You wouldn't get away with that now, would you?
No, I remember there's laws now and legislation against being burnt at work, I think, isn't there?
Recently, like in the last 5 years maybe, when Harrison Ford reprised Han Solo, he got his leg crushed in the Millennium Falcon, and he got paid a fortune by Disney because of, I think he broke something, you know, and Andrew Sachs was just had to go home and take some ibuprofen.
Just going off a lie down.
Yeah. So, just before we finish off, I think probably it's worth mentioning the American attempts at rebooting Fawlty Towers, isn't it?
I was watching an interview with John Cleese about these remakes, and he's never been on board with it. I don't think he's ever thought that they were a good idea. I think he's quite he wants the original keeping as it is and not really doing anything with, which you can understand because it's a masterpiece, isn't it? And I suppose he sees it as one of his like life's greatest works. So to see it butchered with other bits and pieces added on, it's just...
I don't know. Cleese always said he'd never write any more episodes, but then I think his third or fourth wife took half his money. So he wrote a stage play, which was on over this neck of the... Well, it was supposed to be Australia and New Zealand, but we had a massive earthquake in Kaikoura, which they decided to cancel it because it was just the wrong time. So it was only ever on in Melbourne, this stage show. It got quite good reviews. But it was basically Cleese stitched together 3 episodes of Fawlty Towers and made them a play, like a proper play. Well, obviously, not having seen it, I'm just going on the reviews. It was effectively like a 3-act play.
Right.
And he chose to do it in Australia because that's where a lot of musicals are trialled.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I remember Cat Stevens did one based on all of his old songs, and he trialled it in Melbourne, but it never went anywhere else.
No.
And of course, it never. The same with this Fawlty Towers one. It only ever played in Australia, and it was just a money cash grab.
Yeah.
The fact that you see Cleese more on TV and on tour with Python and everything in the last 10 years is just because he got divorced.
Yeah, just skin.
Yeah, well, I don't know about skin, but probably just wanting to keep himself in the life he's become accustomed to. But the American remakes, do you know who was in them?
I know Steve Carell was in one.
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't think I've made that up. I think that is true.
I've got written down here that there was 3. The most recent one starred John Larroquette as the Basil character.
Right.
Who is a good actor. I know John Larroquette.
Oh, right, hang on. A young Steve Carell as Manuel.
Really?
It's not some fever dream I've had. I knew that Steve Carell was involved somewhere.
Is this like in 1999 in a John Larroquette version? Must be, yeah. Because the previous 2 versions were much earlier. Steve Carell would have only been... In the 1980s, Steve Carell was only a teenager, wasn't he?
Right, 4 attempts have been made.
Well, this is probably what I was going to read out about B. Arthur.
Hang on, let me just find Steve Carell in this. Yeah, B. Arthur. 4 attempts have been made in the US alone. Steve Carell made an early appearance in one as the Manuel character, and in another version starring B. Arthur. They even went as far as writing Basil out. Yeah,
B. Arthur was effectively the hotelier, but
Okay.
they just wrote the Basil character out, which Cleese thought was ridiculous.
Was
Rightly
she sort
so.
of Basil-esque in it, or...?
I don't know, I've not seen it. I mean, she was quite the grump, wasn't she? That was
Yeah.
her shtick. But in yet another version, Betty White was in it. I think Betty White played Sybil.
What? I
Yeah.
love Betty White.
So in some other parallel universe, you've got Estelle Getty in one. Maybe it's the Major. The Majoress.
Yes. Oh,
Going,
wow.
Picture it, Sicily, 1912.
Oh,
That'd be awesome.
I can imagine that for a lot of actors, Fawlty Towers must seem like the pinnacle of writing, of comedy, of TV shows, and people just want a bit of it and to have a try at it. But I don't know. I don't think it's something that I would want to take on because it's never going to be as good, is it?
No, not at all. I think it's best left where it was as a classic of the 70s, So I think that's enough general chit-chat about Fawlty Towers. What do you think? Maybe we should just now have a break, come back next week and get stuck into the first episode. Do you know what it's called?
I do. It's called A Touch of Class.
Yes, I remember this one.
I do.
So you get a real good sense of the snobbery of Basil straight from the off, don't you, on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there, isn't it? It's there from the get-go. So once again, if you are looking to get involved with the SADDO podcast and want to get in touch, you can check us out at SADDO Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, where we are going to be posting out rare videos and clips and things. On Facebook, you can find us by searching for SADDO Podcast. You can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting our website, saddo.club, where you can get more information about us, read the blog post that we put out, or listen to the episodes if you don't do podcast apps. Get in touch with us again by email at saddopodcast@gmail.com. Tell us all the things that you're enjoying, things that we've missed. And subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from.
And you can also join a small but growing collection of SADDOs in the Facebook group, which, as I say, will be one channel through which you can help shape what the third series of this podcast is going to be focusing on. We've got some ideas, but we'll make a short list and we'll just put it to the vote, eh?
Yeah, that's it. We want to hear from you guys because obviously, if you there's something that you are desperate to be deep doven,
Deep divvies.
just deep divvy. You just get involved and tell us because we'd love to hear from you guys.
So, looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Until then, I'll see thee.
Oh, we need a new catchphrase now, don't we?
Yeah.
I'm on the lookout for a new one. Goodbye!
And on my team today I have Sue Pollard, June Whitfield, Susie Aitchison.
And on my team today I have Roy Kinnear, Leslie Grantham, and Mark Winter.
We're asking you, give us a clue. Give us a clue.
Fuck off!